signal, the tunnel light's green.
Oh wow.
So you can watch on the map, it'll follow too.
Oh man. Okay, that's cool. Wow. Wow. Holy cow. Max.
Right then, sorted. Another great introduction. Hello guys, welcome back to A Boring Revolution, your number one news source for everything in regards to the Boring Company. My name is Will. As always, we are back here with positive fact-based news in regards to the Boring Company and a little bit of Tesla in there as well. And yeah, so I read this article, I can't remember if it was last night or this morning, and I thought to myself, you know what? Let's go back, let's have a little bit of a chat about the Boring Company pods, because we've kind of gone off. It's kind of been in the background. We've not really thought about it for a while. I know I did a few prediction videos in regards to what I thought was going to happen with the pods in terms of where they're going to be platooning, how big the battery was going to be, how fast they were going to charge. The amount of information we have in regards to the pods is quite minimal. There are no real specs out there on the Boring Company website, which is fairly disappointing, but it's understandable because I imagine it's still in development. I don't even think they've produced a prototype vehicle yet, although that might be changing. So, we have this article. You can have a look at it if you want to on Electrek, but the most important piece is this part here, and it's in regards to Elon Musk's plans for Tesla, and that he outlined some goals that he wanted the company to achieve over, he didn't really give a time period, but over say the long term, and he completed all those various tasks, and then he decided, you know what, I'm going to have part 2 or part 2, and in that, one of the things that he mentioned is, in addition to consumer vehicles, there are 2 other types of electric vehicle needed: heavy-duty trucks and high passenger density urban transport. Both are in the early stages of development and Tesla and should be ready for unveiling next year. We believe the Tesla Semi will deliver a substantial reduction in cost of cargo transport while increasing safety and making it real fun to operate. So there's not really been any specific kind of leaks from the Boring Company or Tesla about some kind of pod that's being developed, but there are these plans out there. I think that it's safe to say that Elon Musk is definitely working on something. How far along he is with that, we just have no idea whatsoever. But he hasn't really talked about it that much over the last year or so. And Tesla has been developing a lot of other vehicles. There's been a real emphasis on the semi-truck, which was in that paragraph that we've just mentioned, the Cybertruck, the Model Y, and obviously as well in the background we've got the Roadster. So Tesla is snowed under with vehicles that they're developing, but they are working their way through that backlog of work, and at some point they're going to be sending their engineers to work on the Boring Company AEV, autonomous electric vehicle, and this article kind of covers that. The guy that writes articles for Electrek is a really kind of no-nonsense kind of talker, and he does make some very, very good points in terms of his articles and what he says on his podcast. If you've not checked that out, definitely get on YouTube and check that out. But this is what he says. I think a Tesla high passenger density urban transport is still in the plans. When Elon Musk's Boring Company unveiled their first tunnel in LA, they were using Tesla vehicles in them, and they have been talking about using Tesla's technology for their tunnels and transportation systems for the past 2 years. At one point, as you say, at some point, they were talking about making a new electric vehicle with high passenger capacity, and they released this concept image. I believe we will soon see a new Tesla vehicle based on this original collaboration. So there's definitely a push towards building a pod, but they've just not got the numbers there, and the Boring Company's not really won enough projects to justify building a very specific custom built fit for purpose vehicle. And these are problems. Basically, let's talk about it. Number one, we've already started Las Vegas and we don't have a vehicle even in prototype stage. So we are forced to use essentially Model X's and Model 3s and maybe Model Y's as well, which are not really fit for purpose. What works best for mass transit is high capacity vehicles. Putting 6, 7, even 8 people in a vehicle is not really enough. We need to be going for at least 10, possibly 12, maybe even 14 people per pod. And to do that, you need something that's bigger, longer than your traditional SUV. So we're talking around 23 foot long, maybe 24 foot long, maybe slightly wider than a Model X, so around 7'2", 7'5" inches wide, something in that kind of ballpark figure, so we can get 12, 14, maybe even 16 passengers in there. Because if you can run less vehicles and move more people, it's obviously going to be more efficient. So that's the first problem. The second problem is these kind of things take a long time to build, because it's got to operate in the tunnels as essentially a mass transit vehicle, a bit like a train, but then it's going to come up onto the surface. So all the regulations that govern vehicles that operate on the surface are also going to apply to this vehicle that runs underground. And you imagine that there'll be some other kind of sneaky regulations that also apply to mass transit systems like trains and buses that will also have to pass. So there's a lot of work to do for Tesla. I really, really wish they had started early on this vehicle, maybe this time last year, if they had started really building prototypes and getting designs out there. However, based on all the various other vehicles they're trying to build at the moment in the one factory they have at Fremont, it's kind of a bit of a shit show, and they've just got so much to do. So many vehicles: Roadster, Model Y, Cybertruck, Tesla Semi. There's too much for the engineers to do. So now that they've got some time, I'm hoping and praying that they're going to be working on this vehicle. They're going to be building it out, and this vehicle, this is the absolute most important thing that I'll say during this live stream. It has to be fit for purpose. Yeah. So when I say fit for purpose, I mean it either needs to look essentially identical to what they've already produced in the renders, or something else, a bit like this. So this is a concept vehicle by a company called Ollie. So what does the Boeing company have to do to make this vehicle work perfectly? Well, first of all, it needs to be custom built. It needs to be built for the job that it's going to be doing, i.e. moving 14 people. It's easy to get onto it, quick boarding. The materials that they use inside are not easily damaged. It's extremely reliable. It's extremely efficient. It's got high capacity. It's safe. All the basic things that you think of with trains and buses needs to apply to this, but it also needs to have a high top speed, at least 140, 155 miles per hour. It needs to be in that kind of ballpark. It's going to need a big battery, because this thing is going to be accelerating hard. It's going to be cruising at very high speeds, and it's going to be running 8, 9, maybe even 10 hours a day. I mean, how long can these vehicles run? It depends on the size of the battery. So you're going to have some kind of a mammoth battery, maybe 220 kilowatt hour, 250 kilowatt hour, in that kind of ballpark, or have maybe slightly smaller than that, maybe 160 kilowatt hour, and then have a really efficient rapid charging system to get the vehicles charged up in less than 20-25 minutes, and then they can get back out there. So you'd obviously have to have a lot of vehicles waiting in the wings that are, you know, excess capacity, so they could take over when other vehicles are charging. So let's have a look what other people have been trying to build. Now, granted, these vehicles are for on the surface, but they kind of do the same kind of thing. So they've got the automatic doors. They've got space where people can stand. They've got seating space either end. They've got these bench-style seats. One of the best examples of an autonomous electric vehicle that I've seen is this Toyota e-Palette, which is top left of the screen. Personally, I think something along that kind of line, but maybe a bit more aerodynamic, would be perfect for the Boring Company. But again, it needs to be built from the ground up with an emphasis on it's going to be operating on the ground, it's going to be operating on the surface as well. It's going to need to go long distances without charging, it's going to need a high top speed, it's going to need to be extremely safe, because if one of these vehicles has an accident, you know the press will be all over it. Okay, so that's kind of what I was wanting to talk about today. So I've had a look at the article and we've kind of explained it. Let's have a look at the questions. If you have any other questions about what I've just said, you know, pop them in here on the in the comment section, and you know, hopefully I can give you the right answer. A lot of this is based on what I've heard. Basically, there's no, you know, key facts from the Boring Company explaining exactly the specifications of these vehicles, but based on what I know and how this system has to operate, it's going to be fairly easy to predict what it needs to basically do and how many people it needs to hold. So, first question of the day is Edmar Newman. Hi, can you explain how this curved concrete pieces one see on the live stream in Las Vegas fit together? So well, we're kind of going off topic here, but essentially, there is a seam that runs around the segment. It's like a rubber seam, and when those pieces are put together, it's essentially compressed, and that ensures that it's watertight. And then each piece is then bolted together. I don't know how many connection pieces there are. Maybe 4 or 6. And then they're essentially jacked up into piece, and then you've got a keystone that goes along the top. I will do a video at some point with like an animation of machine assembling precast concrete segments, so I will come back to you on that one, my friend. Capacity of the pods. So what I've heard is 14 passengers per pod. It as long as it's more than 9, around, you know, if it's like 10, 11, 12, that kind of ballpark, that's going to be fine. It might be better having more pods with a smaller capacity than you know, 40-foot long pods that hold 30 people. So I'm thinking at the moment it's going to be around 12 to 14 people per pod, which is about right. And remember, you can run these pods very, very close together in a kind of a platoon. So what you end up with is almost like a train, really, where you can get loads and loads of pods in one tunnel with minimal gaps between them. I think they'll still be quite big, monomodi. I think that they'll be at least 22 foot long, I imagine, in that kind of ballpark. Maybe more, who knows. Speed of the pods. So it's an interesting one, because 125 miles per hour is banded about, 155 miles per hour is banded about. It doesn't really matter too much if it's either of them. I have a feeling it'll be closer to 125 miles per hour now. I've changed my opinion on that. So I think they might set it at something, say like 128 miles per hour is the maximum operating speed. It doesn't really need to be much faster than that, because you know, these tunnels are not going to be 120 miles long. So as long as the journeys are less than an hour, they're not even going to be 100 miles long. So it doesn't really need to be excessive. And the faster you go, the quicker you wear down your tyres, which is additional maintenance for your vehicle. It probably caused more wear and tear to the electric motors as well, and various other parts. So it might be better just capping the vehicles at 128 miles per hour, but who knows, maybe Elon Musk wants to go for 155. It's certainly possible if you are platooning. In terms of charging, they'll probably use the same kind of superchargers as the Tesla vehicles. I think they're 250 kilowatts. So, you're talking around 20-25 minutes to get to 80% charge. Hello, James. Just what I'm thinking, I broke 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, which I'm extremely, extremely happy about. We're really struggling to get subscribers at one point. We're around about 1,500 subscribers, and then just suddenly over the last 4 months, I don't know whether it's because I've been doing new videos or just there's more interest with Las Vegas project starting. We've just had like a flood of people coming in. We've had nearly 100 subscribers in the last sort of 4 or 5 days. It's been incredible. Yeah. So Thaddeus makes a very good point here. They're going to just have to use the Model X's, maybe a modified Model X's, in the short to medium term. So we're talking 1 to 3 years. They'll just have to make that work. Maybe the capacity will be reduced to 6 or 8 passengers. They could maybe change the internal layout so they've got more bench seating. I think 8 passengers is possible, but I imagine in the long term, so for the example, the Las Vegas project, which is progressing very well actually, once that has been completed, they'll use Model X's, but maybe in the next 2 to 3 years after completing it, they might start to replace the vehicles, maybe initially with Model Ys, and then maybe later on with specific Boeing company autonomous electric vehicles. Yeah, so Edmar makes a very good point. The Las Vegas project is kind of a strange one. It's not how we want to build mass transit. The reason that we've accepted the project in this Las Vegas is because we had an interested party who needed a solution to the problems with people getting around the conference center. So they kind of like designed the system for the Boeing company, and the Boeing company was just told to build it. In the future, we won't have as many underground stations, and the underground stations will be at least 3-4 miles apart if there are any. We'll have much more elevators and much more ramps, especially ramps, and that will enable the pods to operate at very high average speeds. So sort of average cruising speed could be 80, 90, 100 miles per hour. But at the moment for the Las Vegas project, we kind of snookered really, because we can't really accelerate as hard as we want because the underground stations are so close together. So you're going to end up with, an average cruising speed of around 50, 60 miles per hour at best for Las Vegas, probably lower than that actually. And that's just due to the nature of what the client wanted and how the system is laid out. I mean, they could improve it by adding some ramps, but I very much doubt that the client wants that. He just wants a solution to his problem, which is basically people stuck at one end of the conference hall and then they have to travel, half a mile to the other end, and they want some kind of system where people don't need to pay for Ubers or taxis or walk in the sun. Sorry, I do not speak, I'd imagine that's Spanish. I did Spanish at school, but I am absolutely terrible at languages. Sort of joking, sort of not. Elon Musk is converging on the Wongavator, the new glass would resist sand blasting. Yeah, that was quite funny with the Cybertruck, how the window were broken. It did make me laugh when that happened. But you can actually see how how that occurred when they were smashing the Cybertruck with a sledgehammer, and that's caused the window to drop. So it wasn't supported at the top, hence why it broke. What's the latest from Las Vegas? Any news on progress? Yes. What? Hello, Johnny. How are you? So, James. So, the TBM is progressing nicely. I don't know the exact number of meters it has progressed, although they have been removing a lot of spoil from on site. At some point I will do an update video on Las Vegas, but the issue is we can't really see anything. All we can see is spoil that's been dumped on the surface, and that is often taken away, you know, almost straight away via semi-trucks. So we know they're making progress. There's a lot of concrete segments going in there, so I'm presuming that they're progressing at around 20 to 24 meters per day, which, if you've not watched my previous video about, you know, progress of the TBM, it is absolutely fine. They should be able to finish all the tunnels by the end of March, even if they have some minor delays. Everything's progressing well. There's no pictures coming out from the Boeing company, which is a bit disappointing. I wish they'd just take some pictures inside the tunnel to just show us what's going on, and then that would help me with this channel. It's Portuguese, you think? It could be Portuguese, very much so. Could be, I'm not sure. Alright guys, I think I'm going to call it a day. Thank you so much for joining me again for another live stream. If, I tell you what, one more question. Anyone got any more questions specifically about the Boeing company pods, autonomous electric vehicles and how they operate? And remember, these Boeing company pods will be part of the Tesla, what would you call it, fleet surface or a Tesla network. So it'll be a bit like a competitor to Uber. So I'd imagine that Tesla vehicles will also be able to use the Boeing company tunnels if you pay a bit extra, but they'll be predominantly used via the Boeing company pods because obviously they hold more people. If you just let people in with the Tesla Model S and they have one passenger in there, it's kind of going to mess things up in terms of capacity. So you'd probably want people to be paying, you know, $4 or $5 to use the tunnels, which probably people would. They really would do that. Okay guys, so it doesn't look like we've got any more questions on the way, so I'm going to call an end to this live stream. Thank you again for joining me. Really appreciate all the support. Absolutely love the fact that we've broken 2,000 subscribers. I believe it's 2,060 subscribers as of now. That's phenomenal. Thank you to all my Patreons as well. Money is being invested well into this channel and it will continue to grow. 2020 is going to be a fantastic year. Everything's going very positively at the moment, and as you can imagine, I am very happy about that. Let me know what you think about the Boeing company in the comments below on YouTube. And remember guys, don't be boring. Hopefully see you on the next live stream. And please subscribe to the Twitter, Instagram and Facebook channels. Thank you very much and goodbye. See you next time. See ya.